It has been a much quieter offseason than most of us hoped, as the Philadelphia Phillies seemingly plan to run it back with mostly the same core. However, maybe we've been a bit harsh on Dave Dombrowski, who has still found ways to upgrade this roster, and I do believe that the addition of Jesus Luzardo signals a change in identity for this Phillies team. I want to point into why exactly that's the case, as well as list up why Bleacher Report is grading the Phillies a bit more favorably than we have kind of spoken about on this channel. So I want to dive into exactly what that angle is and kind of speak about why I think Luzardo signals a change in identity. So let's get right into things here. I do want to start off with the headline saying Philadelphia Phillies receive fair grade for their progress this offseason, and to go to the exact write-up from Bleacher Report, it gives the Phillies a B. Notable additions, it says left-hander Jesus Luzardo, who I mentioned at the top, right fielder Max Kepler, right-handed pitcher Jordan Romano, and right-handed pitcher Joe Ross. As far as the notable losses that are listed, just Jeff Hoffman there. I do believe Carlos Estevez will be added shortly, although he has not signed on the dotted lines anywhere at this very moment. And the full write-up stating the Phillies are going to miss Hoffman, who had a 2.28 ERA in 2 seasons with them, and that much more so if Romano fails to bounce back after a down year. This said, the likelihood that Luzardo will only be the Phillies' number 5 starter is bonkers. He has number 1 caliber stuff when he's right, as he showed, posting a 3.58 ERA with 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings in 2023. A back injury undid his 2024 season, but he's healthy now. The outfielder is better with Kepler in it, especially if he can so much as recapture his 2023 form. He has an 816 OPS with 24 home runs. And I do believe that's probably the biggest theme of this Phillies offseason is I don't want to say they're digging out of the bargain bin, but what they are clearly targeting is guys ready for that bounce back season. Now, granted, we've seen this all across baseball, and there's so much variance on a year-to-year basis, particularly in a lot of these kind of role player archetype guys. And I'm speaking mostly about Max Kepler for this specific category, although I also think it applies to a lot of the bullpen guys like Jordan Romano, like Jeff Hoffman, like our guy like Jose Alvarado, that you can see on a year-to-year basis that they can look like pretty drastically different players. If you catch them at the right time, it can help your team in a major way. You catch them at the wrong time, and you are out of luck there. Now, granted, there is a large sample size with baseball with how many games there are, how much time is played, that things do tend to even out in the long run, but there certainly is a little bit more variance with these type of players. Now, to talk about Luzardo specifically, I do want to point a little bit of what he brings to the table. And I'll start off by pulling up his stats for last year, which, as mentioned, the back injury did derail things there. He only pitched in 12 games last season, just 66.2 innings pitched. Over that time, he gave up 9 home runs, only 58 strikeouts compared to his 61 hits. That comes out to 8.2 hits per 9 innings, a 5 flat ERA, and a 1.245 whip. So not his best stuff by any means, but still just 26 years old, and he has shown the flashes. That to pull up a quick stat here that I like, one from shout out to Eric Cross here, says 6 starting pitchers had 2+ offerings with 40+ whiff rate in 2024, minimum 200 pitches for each offering. Blake Snell 3 times, Tyler Glasnow, Jesus Luzardo, Reese Olson, Spencer Schwellenbach, and Kyle Gibson there. So not a bad list to be mentioned with overall, and there is another factor, which why I'm talking about the identity. I think the evaluation from the Phillies side of things is while they kind of have shifted in this recent era into a team that is going to mash home runs, that they've leaned into the long ball more so than anybody, with that most specifically signaled with Kyle Schwarber right at the top here, and for Kyle Schwarber right at the top with 38 home runs that he had just last season. He led the league in home runs as a leadoff hitter for this Phillies team before. That was the angle, that their tactic was, we're going to outmash you. And while they've had success, obviously, that things have turned around, they've made a World Series, have been a relevant playoff team from the wide-scale standpoint, I do think they're shifting more into a pitching-oriented mode now. And to dive into why exactly that is the case here, to take a look at their depth chart specifically, we know who Zack Wheeler is, a guy who you can make the pound-for-pound argument is the best pitcher in baseball, certainly among the top 5 there. I personally think he should have gotten a little bit more legitimate Cy Young buzz than was the case last year, but nonetheless, he performs when the moment is at its largest and when this team needs him, and that has been proven time and time again. Aaron Nola, a guy who I think continually is underappreciated. I understand we still have those clunker Aaron Nola innings or those random outings in which he does not look like the ace version of himself, and that's why he's not. That's why Zack Wheeler is the guy here, but you're not going to find a much better number 2 option really across the league, with the exception of the Dodgers, whose, that staff looks absolutely nasty. But to continue down, Christopher Sanchez is a guy who absolutely proved his worth to this Phillies team, and a guy that I have the utmost confidence in the long haul there. Another Another guy that I have the utmost confidence is Ranger Suarez. You will not get that guy's heart rate to raise ever, and he is ready to perform in the biggest moments. We've seen him do it in the playoffs, and even in a season like last year in which he did not have his best stuff the way that he fought through it. And then Jesus Luzardo locking things down in that number 5 spot. I do think that is how things shake out. Of course, Taijuan Walker in that final slot there with number 6. Very curious what they ultimately end up doing with Taijuan Walker. This is not a guy that I have a ton of hatred in my heart for, that I think the bottom line and the reality is the Phillies signed him to a contract that his talent was incapable of fulfilling. And to Ty's credit, he has battled, he has tried, he's been the model teammate, really a guy that's been a positive locker room voice and competes whenever he gets the opportunity. But the unfortunate reality is he just does not have the stuff that the Phillies kind of needed him to be with the contract that was handed, and that is why they did make the adjustment to bring in a guy like Luzardo. And this all goes without mentioning the up-and-coming potential star and potential future ace of this franchise in Andrew Painter there. And why I bring that up is we did get a report saying that Andrew Painter returns to the top 10 in prospect rankings after a dominant AFL performance. And to dive into the full write-up here, doing a pull-up that it says Andrew Painter's resurgence in the prospect rankings, a vote of confidence for Painter and the Phillies. Quote, Painter is finding a lot of respect in the 2025 prospect rankings. Over the last week, Painter has spiked to number 9 in Baseball America's top 100 rankings. In addition to Baseball America, Painter also finds himself in the top 10 at number 8 in the MLB Pipeline top 100 rankings for 2025, all following his sterling performance in the AFL after being ranked number 19 last September. So obviously a great sign that he's back to pitching well. We know that he did battle that Tommy John issue. He's been shut down, and well, it is going to be very interesting to see the game plan that the Phillies have in place. Now, Dave Dombrowski has been pretty outward and public that they do have a direct plan, and they're the landmarks they're going to bring this guy along. But the expectation is we will see Andrew Painter in a Phillies uniform at the major league level this year. How soon that is going to be really interesting to me, and I'm very curious kind of how they, find a way to balance all these pitchers. I personally have pushed for this a while that I'm very much in favor of a 6-man rotation. For me, it makes all the sense in the world to limit the wear and tear on these guys' arms, that injuries are the biggest thing that can derail a team in any professional sport. And for this Phillies team specifically, you need all of those top-end arms to be ready when you do get to the playoffs. There's a 162-game grind to just get to that point, and I think it eases a lot of wear and tear by just having an extra day every single rotation that you can rest there. Now, granted, for the specific Phillies team, there's a lot of pitchers that feel this way. That's not been something that they've been entirely open to. That both Nola and Wheeler specifically have been pretty open about. They prefer the routine of going every 5 games and, it being a set structure like that they don't want the extended time off because of the flow that their body gets in. And I understand that. I think athletes more so than anyone are some of the most superstitious or, I guess, routine-oriented people on the planet there. And I understand with this specific situation, you got to kind of do what's best for them. And if they believe that is pitching more often, you do let them be the case there. But I think there should be a conversation had about at least trying this if Painter is ready for the challenge there. And also, this is a spot where if that were to be the case, there's a little less pressure on you as Andrew Painter that you're not asked to be a significant part of the rotation. Yes, you're pitching every 6th game, but this isn't a spot where you're looked at to be the guy right away. I think what the problem with the Phillies team last year, and obviously there were a ton of injuries to the pitching staff, guys like Ranger Suarez who were shut down for an extended period of time, that there really was not a consistent 5th starter for the duration of the season. And why that was so hard is that basically meant you had to win the games when your ace was on the mound. That yes, as much as I love seeing the Colby Allards and, all these guys having their opportunity in that 5th starter role, Taijuan Walker, of course, saw his chances as well. The bottom line was none of the options were good enough, and that essentially became a scheduled loss every 5 days. The Phillies have addressed that quite clearly this offseason, and I think more so than ever are going to lean into pitching being a strength. I think that was the evaluation from Dave Dombrowski, is when you look around the major leagues, look at the available options and how this Phillies team can get better, there really is not a ton in the position player or hitting market. Again, they're trying to thread the needle. We've talked so much about the Alec Boehms of the world, the Bryson Stotts. These are good baseball players. This is not a spot where you're just you have a guy that sucks and you're trying to get a guy that's decent. You have guys that are decent, probably better than decent, and you're trying to get very elite talent. But guess what? So is everyone else. So I do give a little bit of a tip of the hat to Dave Dombrowski. I'm still not going to grade this a 10 out of 10 offseason. Frankly, I still think the B grade is a little bit strong. But I do want to acknowledge, I think I see what he's doing. I do think pitching is the future for this Phillies team. And I do think, like, when taking a step back and truly evaluating, sure, the Dodgers pitching staff is absolutely filthy too. But when you look around at some of these just absolutely star-studded lineups, the Phillies just aren't going to compete with that, man. They have some very good players. The Nick Castellanos, the Bryce Harpers, the Kyle Schwarbers, the Trey Turners. These are guys that are supposed to be your core pieces. But if you're talking about lining them up against going just guy for guy, power for power, player for player, it is tough to stack up with that. And there really is not the available options without spending $750 million for Juan Soto to add to that. So I get the concept of leaning on pitching, and I do hope that is the best case scenario for this Phillies team moving forward. I'm still hopeful that there is a rabbit up Dave Dombrowski's hat, that he does have one more trick up his sleeve, that he can find a way to put some final touches on this Phillies team. But there are 16 days until pitchers and catchers report at the time of recording this. So if this is the squad, if this is what the Phillies are wrong with, so be it. We will see if that is the case or not. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is B a fair grade for the Dave Dombrowski offseason? Again, like I said, I do think that is still a little strong. I probably sit closer to the B-, C+ range, and I think C+ would be my honest assessment there. But shout out to Jesus Luzardo. Do hope he can exceed my expectations and be a key part of this Phillies team moving forward. And each other guy, the Max Keplers, Jordan Romano, you go down the list, and everybody. Hopefully some more names that we have not heard just yet. But we will see what happens from there. As always, appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video here. I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Phillies Digest. Peace.